How many Godzilla films do you remember?
Oh, that's a good question. I remember the black and white ones, but
Oh,
not
I
much.
remember those.
I remember Godzilla doing a drop kick in the air like this.
Okay, I have not seen that before. I've seen clips of it online,
Yeah.
but I've never seen like the TV show for that.
Ah, you have to dig real deep to get to that.
Do you think it's worth it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's start talking about Godzilla. Hello there, Clapperheads, and welcome to a brand new episode of ClapperTalks. I'm Nick Dorian.
And I'm Kelvin Tay.
And we are going to be talking about a film that has been highly anticipated, considering the fact that it only got a Japanese release and a very limited American release.
I agree.
Like, because of, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, whoever's listening, because of the rights that America holds, it's become incredibly difficult for a worldwide release for Japanese Godzilla films.
Oh, okay.
Which is why we rarely see Japanese Godzilla films outside of Japan.
Right, I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
Because it's very clear when you watch the American version of Godzilla and also the Japanese version of Godzilla, it's two different monsters.
Yes,
right?
it's not like it's canon.
Yeah, in terms of design.
Yes.
It's very, very obvious. It's different.
Yes. And also the fact that at one point, I don't know if you know this, the old American Godzilla, that god-awful lizard Godzilla,
Okay, yeah.
kind of became canon in that universe. Like, I think there was a comic that came out that made it canon,
Right.
but they haven't made the new Godzillas, the MonsterVerse Godzilla canon. I'm not sure why. I mean, I can kind of understand why. It's the MonsterVerse Godzilla films are all right.
Okay.
It's not, to me at least, it doesn't feel like Godzilla. Like, Godzilla, sure, is huge, it's action-packed, he's taking down, like, buildings and whatnot, but there's always a strong sort of human element to it.
Yeah.
They tried to do that with the MonsterVerse, and every time it just became slow and boring and tedious. Let's not forget that first. Do you remember the first MonsterVerse Godzilla film?
Okay, I was just about to go there. When we are talking about the American Godzilla universe, right?
Yes.
We have the lizard Godzilla,
Yeah.
which is the one where the scene, the actor or the guy was standing and then his the mountain of fish Godzilla.
Yes.
Right, okay, that's the lizard Godzilla, the OG one.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about the Mecha Godzilla versus Kong
Yeah.
versus Big Butterfly.
Not Godzilla. Godira. Yeah? King Godira. Ghidorah. There it is. I got it. I finally got it. Ghidorah. Yes.
Versus Dragon, whatever.
Yes.
Cyberpunk Dragon. That's what I
No,
like
sorry.
to call them.
Ghidorah is the dragon. Mothra is the butterfly.
Mothra.
Oh, I'm
Right.
so ashamed of myself.
Okay. So those are the two different camps of Godzilla that we know, right?
Yes.
And then we also have the Japanese version, or like Yamazaki's version of Godzilla, which is the one that looks more practical.
Yes,
in terms of
which
design.
started off in a rubber suit.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be honest, if you watch back the older Godzillas, it still kind of holds up in a very nostalgic way. Like, this is where Godzilla came from. This is what it was all about. Sure, it looked a bit campy at times, but there was still a great story behind it. Let's not forget, we also had Godzilla, son of Godzilla, which I'm really hoping, bring back Son of Godzilla, because he was so cute. But no, we're not going to be talking about all that today. What we're going to talk about is Godzilla -1. When I was in Japan, Godzilla -1 came out, and I saw the trailers when it first came out, and I was massively excited for this. There was only one problem. Japan doesn't tend to do English subtitles for their Japanese films because, to be fair, why would they? It's catering to the Japanese audience. And then when they won the Academy Award, I was like, I really want to watch this film. When are we ever going to watch this film? Because there was no details of them releasing it digitally or releasing it for international markets. And then all of a sudden, like literally, it came without warning. Netflix went, Godzilla -1 drops today. I was like, wait,
Wait, there was no
Wait,
announcement whatsoever?
no announcement, no like, on Netflix they'll say, oh, coming soon.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Or they'll put like billboards and trailers everywhere.
Nothing whatsoever. Like, I only found out when my good friend Bahir from Goggler messaged us and going, Godzilla -1 just dropped on Netflix. I was like, wait, hold the phone. Wait, what? And I looked, I was like, oh, damn, it's real. It's on Netflix now. Now, I can't say for certain if this is a worldwide Netflix thing. I'm sure it's most of Asia, it's on Netflix. But I'm so glad it is because I think this is a film that is honestly a classic in the making. It's a film that is so rich with human stories, especially wartime, grief, connection, loneliness, what do you call it? Redemption. There's so many things at play here rather than just Godzilla tearing down the city, which they do, but it's still much more than that. What do you feel about it?
Okay, so when I watch -1, it is fresh off my experience from the New Empire itself. So it's a storyline and plot-wise, it's literally comparing apples to oranges, right? One, we're talking about the MonsterVerse, where it's like you get King Kong, you get like Baby Kong, you get Mothra, you get all of these random things, and suddenly there's a world within world and a world within that world as well.
Yep.
So it's very very confusing, right? It's like watching Transformers without context, right? But then when we are watching, or when I was watching -1, I personally it was okay for me. Okay, personally it was okay for me.
Okay.
Maybe because I went in with the intention or like with the mindset of like, oh, this is going to be action packed. This is going to be like, wow, super like, fight scene here, fight scene there. But I failed to understand, right? Or I didn't have the context going in that this is a humanized story of this Japanese soldier or this kamikaze soldier who failed in life, in World War II.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was in World War II, by the way.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, to be fair, like maybe I studied history.
Yeah.
So
Right?
I kind of understood
So
like
I went in blind, let's just put it that way.
yeah.
Right? But after understanding and after like, okay, I understand the setting now. The plot makes sense. Right? Acting is a bit here and there.
Okay.
But then again, it's like most Japanese films out there, right?
Yeah.
It's either you get it right or you get it wrong, but most of the time it's like over dramatized.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very Japanese way of making films.
Yeah.
Long story short, I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah. Long story short, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something that I expected.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Because I think because of how the MonsterVerse is, it sort of set the standard, especially within the international market, that Godzilla is all about action, fights, massive battle scenes. But you can have that, but if you don't have a good story behind it, it becomes what the MonsterVerse is.
Yep.
All action, no substance.
Yep.
They tried to do it with Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, which again, because of the standard that the MonsterVerse had set, Monarch had some good points to it, but at the same time, it fell flat because I think everybody was expecting, where's Godzilla?
Yeah.
When is Godzilla turning up? But it wasn't. That was them trying to do a human story. I feel this one has done it justice because of the fact that, yes, it's very Japanese style in terms of acting, but at the same time, that's where Godzilla shines when it comes down to that balance of just human story plus fighting big monsters and whatnot. Because he's a threat. If you have this threat for an hour and a half, it's going to become tedious. You're going to need something more to fill in those gaps than just action. You're going to feel tired.
Oh, yeah. Exactly like the New Empire. Lah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's exactly like the New Empire. There's nothing but fight scenes.
Exactly. And you can't have that. Sure, it's called an action film, but you can't have that. You've got to find that good balance. That's what makes a good film. And that's why I feel Godzilla -1 succeeds in so many ways. Now, I want to ask you a question. As you're watching it, did you feel like you wanted to watch this film in black and white?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I remember you mentioned that to me, and it's like, oh, I wish this would come out in black and white.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what you mean back then, but after watching it, I was like, okay, yes, I would appreciate this more if it's in a black and white tone.
臨時ニュースを申し上げます。東京湾から上陸した巨大生物が銀座方面に向かっています。
あれはゴジラ。
我々しかこの国の未来を切り開くことはできないんだ。
It honestly feels like it's so vintage. I don't think is the word, but it feels like an old school film.
A very classic World War II Asian film.
Yes.
Right? Not a Americanized World
No.
War II whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a very if you watch any old Chinese, Japanese, Korean World War II era film,
Mhm.
this feels like it.
Yeah.
This feels like it.
And especially with the visual effects that they used as
Yep.
well, it honestly harkens back to the golden era of Godzilla films, which is why I constantly felt, oh, this will look really good in black and white. And even when I saw the trailer in black and white, even though it's the exact same scenes, it just had so much more.
It hits different.
Yes, it
different.
hits so
Yeah.
much different.
It has the oomph.
That was the word I was going
Yeah,
for. I was trying to find a more articulate
Yeah.
word than oomph, but that is exactly the word that I was going for.
I like monkey words.
Speaking of monkeys, Godzilla, Kong, yeah, good segue. But at the same time, it's like once you see those fight sequences, especially with the fighter jets,
Yep.
the ships, that's what really makes it feel like, ooh, black and white war film.
Yeah. I like the intro where they're setting up how dangerous Godzilla actually is. Where, you can I spoil the plot?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be spoilers. So.
Okay, right. Spoiler. I
Spoilers.
mean, it's just a very brief spoiler because this scene is in the very early stages of the film.
Yeah.
Where they're on the fishing, the wooden fishing mine vessel, and then they were talking about Godzilla, right? And then they saw Godzilla, and then the big World War II battleship was like, this is our kill. We're gonna claim this. Lo and behold, Godzilla was like, nah, I don't think so. And then he was charging up, and then it just like blow up the entire thing.
Yeah.
Kind of sets up the plot that it's like, oh wow, Japan just been through like the entire war.
Yeah.
Like the entire town is gone. They were bombed to hell, right? And then you have this family, this guy and like this stray girl and a kid trying to rebuild their life with a very bitchy neighbor judging them all the
very
way.
nosy neighbor.
Yeah, right.
Felt like a very Chinese auntie. I don't mean to be rude.
Yeah, right. She was like evil at first, and then she was nice, and then she was caring, and then she's a bitch again, right?
Chinese auntie.
Yeah, right. Tough love. Tough love, right? They were trying to build up their life, and then in the background, Godzilla is gonna come to Ginza, right? And it reminds me of the song, Go Go Godzilla, right?
That's some deep cuts,
right.
man.
And yeah, it's the build up is slow. Okay, the build up is slower than what I am used to. What I mean by what I'm used to is like compared to like Western films, for example.
Yeah.
Right. It's a very slow burn.
Yeah.
But once you understand that it's a slow burn, once you understand what the director is trying to do, trying to build up the plot of like why this character matters, why that character matters, why is this going on, and then how is Godzilla going to come with an overarching arc, right? And it's like, oh wow, this is beautiful.
I agree with you in the sense that it's a slow burn. And that's what I, again, appreciate about the film, that it doesn't rush into things. With a good story, you need to take your time with it. You need to develop the character's background. You need to develop that connection. If you're going straight into it head on, which is what a lot of American films right now are doing, you lack that connection.
Yeah, Acolyte. Sorry.
And when you lack that connection, you don't really get into the film as much as you would.
Yep.
Same thing with a good novel. With a good novel, it takes its time. You get to know these characters. You get to understand them. You get to have this strong emotional connection to them.
I just want to add,
Yes.
right, it's not only that, but have you realized a lot of Western films right now, it's just, in and out.
Yeah.
Like you watch already, there's no lingering nostalgia to it.
No.
This one has it.
Yes.
Because it's such a slow burn.
Yeah. And it's understandable why this has become so so talked about.
Yep.
Because it deserves every single award that has come to them. It should deserve more awards at the Oscars. Thank goodness they won the award for visual effects. But I feel like this kind of a film is a lost art, which is why I say it's a classic in the making. Because this should be in the history books of cinema as one of those perfect gems of a story and a perfect gem of filmmaking. Because films these days, like you said, goes in and out because of how the generation is right now. And this is going to make me sound like an old fart, but it's very fast paced. It's like, oh, we want this now. We want this now. We want this now. We want this now. And they just rush everything.
Instant gratification for 90 minutes.
They've forgotten how to tell a good story. It will take its time. It doesn't matter if it's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You don't even feel it. Like this is about 2 hours, 10 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe longer. But you don't feel it. And that's when a good script and a good story comes in.
Agree.
When they take their time and really delve into it without being drawn out.
Was this Godzilla CGI or practical?
CGI.
It's CGI.
It's CGI. This Godzilla CGI. I think the days of practical is long behind us. If they did practical, this film would go 10 times up in my books.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that is a very old school way of doing films, especially with Godzilla. The only question I have, and I don't know if you had this question as well, major spoilers for the end for this one. How on earth did that woman survive that blast? I get it. This was supposed to be the end. He was like, oh, she's alive. Oh, I thought you were dead the whole time. But at the same point, I'm like...
Plot armor. Because she was important.
I know this is going to sound cruel. I would have preferred her to stay dead. And that he has to honor her memory, raise the daughter in her memory and for the sacrifice that she gave. I think that's my issue as well, is that she had such a strong sacrifice to let him live. And then at the end...
let her die.
Yeah, let her die. It takes away that massive sacrifice that she made. And also another thing, this huge, massive nuclear blast from Godzilla. Eye patch and maybe a broken arm.
I mean, maybe they ran out of budget. Maybe they ran out of budget, right? And then there's another scene where Godzilla took up the train like a toy.
Yes, yeah.
And everyone just fell off and then she was just hanging on.
Yeah.
So do you know how much strength it takes or it requires for you to hang on for so long?
Hey, maybe she's got good core strength. Bro. You don't know that.
Bro.
She may look like a secretary or whatnot.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, it's like a lot of Japanese films out there, right? It's this, there's a lot of incomplete plots. Or there's a lot of what I like to call plot armor that just don't make sense, right? Maybe it's the sentimental value in like Asian directors.
Yeah.
Or like a very, they want to build like a love story that never ends. It's always a happy ending.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you get really messed up shows, then that's a different kind. But for this one, right, I definitely believe it's that they won or they were forced to end the film on a good note. Yeah. And then it's either that or they have no budget. Your pick. You tell me.
I think that would be a good point to take a break.
So I didn't know that Godzilla -1 actually got quite good ratings.
Yeah, it's got like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, so it's 90% of Google user liked it. It's 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb. 98% on Rotten Tomatoes and 81% on Metacritic.
Yeah, and it's understandable why. Like, as I was watching this film, it honestly was very, very difficult for me to point out anything bad about it. Like, every time I go into a film, I weigh out the pros and the cons. I see what works, what doesn't work. The more I watch this, the more I was just glued. And usually I take notes. I take notes of every film.
Yep.
And this one, I mean, one, I was watching it on the plane. But second, like, I was so drawn to it that I just couldn't take my eyes off it to take notes because I just wanted to absorb everything that was coming at me.
また悪い夢。ご両親。
空襲でやられたようです。
兄 さも私と同じね。
親子ともども縁あってこうして生きとったんだから。
だから私はどんなことがあっても死んではいけない。
And again, that's down to what I said before the break, pacing and tone of the film, that it works so well. It doesn't feel like there's a dull moment at all. Everything works perfectly and it moves very well.
Yep.
Ev-
I also want to add, I feel like there are a lot of people who perhaps share the same sentiment as you did,
Mhm.
where they're like, wow, this is a very amazing Japanese original Godzilla film,
Mm.
but it's region locked to Japan only, exclusive to Japan only.
Yeah.
I've been dying to watch it. The trailers looks amazing, but unfortunately, I don't speak Japanese.
Mhm.
But once it came out, everyone was like, wow, our wishes came true.
Yeah.
And then they watched it, they feel nostalgic about it, they love the plot, even though it's a bit slow. They're like, this is going to be a blast. This is going to be a cult following. That's the
Yes.
word I want to use.
Yes.
And I also want to add, right?
Yes.
Whenever you see this before any Japanese film, like this screen here,
Yeah.
you know you're in for a good time.
Yes.
This, I don't know if this one, right? You know you're in for a good time.
Yes.
Because that's how I feel most of the time.
And honestly, with this, it was more than a good time. And I want to bring it back to what you said before of when you first went into it, you didn't really know what to expect. You thought it was
Yeah.
an action film and whatnot. I feel like this is a great first introduction for people that haven't watched Godzilla before. Even if you haven't watched, Godzilla King of the Monsters or Godzilla vs. Kong, start with this. Because it's you don't need to know the lore of Godzilla in order to appreciate this. All you need to know, there's a giant monster ripping Tokyo and Ginza apart. That's all you really need to know. They don't delve into the history of Godzilla. You don't need to know, like we talked about Ghidorah, Mothra, all those
Yep.
monsters. You just go into it with an open mind and enjoy it for what it is.
That's a very beautiful way to put it. Yeah,
Mm.
I 100% agree with you. I would much rather, like, let's just say if I have a kid, for example,
Mm.
I'll start them off with this one first.
Right?
Before they even think about the monsterverse.
Monsterverse.
Yeah, the monsterverse itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the Monsterverse, it's one, it's slow. Two, you kind of sort of need to know a little bit of a backstory of why Godzilla is there, like what
Mhm.
does he do or whatnot. But with this, no, you just go straight into it. You just enjoy yourself. You have some fun,
Agreed.
and maybe don't introduce your kids because it's quite heavy at times. Like
Yeah, fine, fair enough.
like with the wartime grief and understanding and all those emotions, it is a bit tough. But what I also want to mention is this film, honestly, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a great story about the human connection. Like how we all band together at the end of the day in the face of danger or catastrophe. You disagree? I want to know your opinion on this.
No. I'm trying to recall back watching the film, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you because there are some parts of the film where you see literally a war-torn town. You know, everything was flattened by I'm assuming the Great Bomb, right?
Yeah.
Or the Second World War itself.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's post
Post-World War II.
Post World War II,
Yeah.
right? Where they're trying to rebuild the entire town.
Yeah.
Of course, there are some people bitter about it. You can't run away from that because it is the Japanese mindset where if you are a kamikaze pilot,
Mhm.
you are doing a big sacrifice for your country
Yep.
and for your emperor.
Yes.
And if you fail to do it, of course people look down on you because they are a culture where, I mean, back then lah, right? I don't know if it's still an ongoing thing now, but if you lose face,
Yes.
right, or you cause your family to lose face,
Yes.
you perform,
Harikiri.
right?
Yeah.
Harakiri, right? And there's no two ways about it. So
Yeah.
so for them it's a big shame. But the fact that in this film it was portrayed that yes, his the army personnel,
The captain.
the captain hated him for
Yeah,
it. He's
yeah.
like, you're a disgrace,
Yeah.
right? You can redeem yourself by going into the plane and shoot it, but you didn't because
Yeah.
you were scared, and then now everyone died, and then you get shipped back, and then you ask your neighbor about, oh, where's my family?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you're back. But wait, aren't you a kamikaze pilot? Why are you
Yeah.
back?
Yeah.
you are a disgrace.
Yeah.
You know, and then he found like a band of outcasts, I would say,
Yes.
right? That they
Yes.
all belong. Basically, they were sent on a suicide mission, lah,
Yeah.
right? Uh, Going back to your question, yes, it's definitely a story about how people can come together,
Yeah.
regardless of the facts that you are shit, right? From their point of view,
Yes.
you know, you are shit, but you can redeem yourself.
Yeah, it's a great story of redemption. And
That's
also
the word. That's
redemption,
the word.
right?
Redemption. Yeah.
And also, I feel this is the filmmaker's way. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but to turn a page on that whole harakiri concept. Like right at the end when he redeems himself, spoilers, throwing the plane straight into Godzilla's mouth, and where he chose life instead. And everyone
Yeah.
appreciated him for it, because even though he chose life, he also managed to defeat Godzilla. And I feel that's going back to this whole harakiri thing. If they wanted to stick with that, they would have made him an even more of a disgrace at the end.
Yep.
But they celebrated that fact. And I feel like the times are turning with Japan, and sort of like, you can redeem yourself from these losing face moments. So maybe that was the filmmaker's way of
Maybe.
also changing the
Maybe,
tone
yeah.
of it, going, look, it can be done. People are going to take life-risking actions to redeem themselves and to save their country. You don't need to die for your country. I think that's the key. Especially, and I might be really broad with this, but in these times of wars and whatnot, you don't need to sacrifice your own life for your country. You can still fight for your country without losing your face or deciding to kill yourself,
yeah.
quote unquote. But I feel this is a great story of redemption at the end of the day. And even with the small connections with the little girl, with the woman who survived a nuclear attack, it's still about love as well. Honestly, there's so many themes in this film, which is why I love it so much. Because it's, again, I keep saying this over and over and over again, it's not just a monster disaster film. It is such a human film and so real.
It's a film revolving around the pilot and his family.
Yeah.
And I feel like Godzilla in this film, as much as his name is plastered on the posters and everywhere, Godzilla's a supporting character.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, that's a very good way of
Yeah.
putting it. He really is. He's essentially, simple terms, the problem, and they are the solution.
Yeah, monkey words.
It really
Yeah,
is
yeah.
bad guy versus good guy. And
One thing I love most about this Godzilla is like when he's charging up his power.
boom, 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 boom.
You know what it feels like?
What?
It feels like I'm a kid again playing with the Godzilla toy.
Right.
And even the blue color light up, right?
Yeah.
It's so like toy-like.
Right.
Right? That's how I feel. I was like, oh, this looks like they just used a practical effect out of like a made in China Godzilla toy.
And I
Yeah.
don't know how they did it compared to the Monsterverse, but somehow in that moment, especially when he unleashes his nuclear breath, it feels so damn powerful compared
agree.
to what the Monsterverse had.
I agree.
Maybe it's the fact that, again, they kept it simple by going, okay, he's just smashing buildings and whatnot. Sure, he's powerful, but you want to see the true power. Boom. And when it happens, it hits you like a ton of bricks at how strong Godzilla actually is. Another thing, sorry, I want to mention as well, the ingenious way that they decided to capture Godzilla by the bubbles.
Oh!
I was like, wow, damn smart, huh? Damn scientific as well. That you were using these bubbles to create the sort of vacuum to bring him down. And if that didn't work, just bounce him back up. And it's such... That's why I say it's simple as well. Because you don't need a whole army or shoot guns at him, army, all that. No, just use bubbles and bring him down. If that doesn't work, bring in the army.
It was never really explained how Godzilla came about here, right?
I feel like you don't need to.
Right? It's one of those, is like they showed the war, they showed the nuclear explosion, and then they showed a bit like mutation, I want to say.
Yeah.
Right? In the very early scenes of it, right?
Yeah. Also, I feel like maybe... Well, I can't say for certain. They were making this for Japanese audiences. But if they were doing it for Japanese audiences, Godzilla is synonymous in Japan.
Oh, for sure.
It doesn't need explaining at all. If you're Japanese, forgive me if I'm wrong, you know Godzilla of some sort.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a giant Godzilla head in Shibuya.
Shibuya, one of the hotels.
Which I went to. It's fucking awesome. And that's how iconic Godzilla is in Japan. So I feel like there's no explanation needed of how he came about. Godzilla's just there. Godzilla's Godzilla. So, do yourself a favor. Godzilla -1 is now streaming on Netflix. Again, not sure if it's worldwide, but go and check your Netflix and see if it's there. And if not, use a VPN. If you need a good VPN, hey, NordVPN. Throw some sponsorship our way. And as always, you can check us out on all social media. You can check out Clappercorns at TikTok, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Go and subscribe to those channels for all the updates.
I've been Kelvin Tay.
Oh, you don't want to tell your socials as well?
I mean, I can. Sorry. On this episode, I feel I'm actually a bit sick, so I do apologize in advance if I'm a bit low energy and I'm like so stuffy. But if you want to learn more of me and more of Renegade Radio, you can find me at Kelvin Koiwai, that's Koiwai, or my company, Renegade Radio. Yeah.
I'm Nick Dorian.
And I'm Kelvin Tay.
Keep watching the movies.
Take care, guys.